Guys, this is something I have personally observed, like on the weekday batches. If it is on a weekday, most of the crowd will be silent because I've seen maybe most of you are working and you might join from your office. I apologize. Unfortunately, sometimes we can't do much about timings. So to perform manual switchover on physical standby, what are the steps? I will first show an overview over here and then we will get into the steps. So you have this primary database and you have this standby, right? This configuration is working perfectly fine. So the step one is to find out the gap. So there should not be any gap between primary and standby, okay? Because if there is a gap, what's the point? So you are trying to switch over when some of the logs are not yet applied. So make sure there is no gap between primary and standby and then only go for a switchover activity. Second one is you have to convert primary to standby. Okay, so this primary will be converted to standby database because in a data guard configuration you cannot have two primaries. You cannot convert standby into primary and then convert this primary into standby. No, not allowed, because if you convert this standby into primary, there will be two primary in the configuration, which is not allowed. So that's why the first step is you convert the existing primary to the standby. At this stage, once you convert, what happens is all clients select queries will hold. So how long they will hold? For 5 minutes, because our failover time is for 5 minutes. So within 5 minutes we need to perform the entire activity. So convert primary to standby and then convert standby to primary. So client select queries will get executed because your client is able to connect to a new primary. And fourth, start MRP on new standby. See, once you perform the switchover, the standby becomes primary, right? And this has become standby. That means the log shipping will start working in the reverse direction. So on this new standby, you need to start the MRP process, right? So that logs which are coming from this primary, this should continue to apply on this new standby. And these are the steps that we are going to follow right now. All right. So once we are connected to the database, this command you need to execute. Guys, these all commands, like I prefer copy pasting because I just don't want to waste time in typing those queries, but these all are inside $V database. We know the select name, open mode. You have seen all these queries. Database role will give you what database role is, but we are querying an important column, that is DB unique name. Why are we doing this is because after the switchover, everything will remain same. The database name is same in a data guard configuration, so the name will be test. The open mode will be read write because your old standby has become primary, but the DB unique name will change to test underscore s, because remember guys, this database unique name is test underscore s and this database unique name is test. So by looking at DB unique name, we should be able to tell which server we are connected or which server is acting as the primary, right? At this stage, what is the configuration? So we will start our data guard switchover activity. This is original configuration, right? In the original configuration, the DB unique name, we already know this unique name is test and this database unique name is test underscore s, right? Current role of this database is primary and this is standby, right? So once we perform the switchover, the unique name should change to test underscore s. Everything else will remain same. So I think this query we will execute as client. Okay, So client is working. Okay, we till now we did not check which server the client has connected, right? Can you see the client is connected to the test database, which is in read-write mode, DB unique name. With this DB unique name, we can say that we are connected to our original primary, this test server, right? And database current role is primary. Perfect. So now let us start the activity. We will perform the switchover. Guys, switchover activity is very simple. There are only 4 commands that you need to run. First of all, we need to check if there are any gaps or not. So for this activity, guys, you need to pay a little attention because I'll be using multiple windows. This is the primary, this is the standby, this is original configuration, and this is the client window. All right. So on the primary, what we need to do is we need to check the gap, whether there is any gap or not. That is our step 1. Because if there is any gap, then first you resolve the gap and then you proceed further. So 99% of the time I mentioned the gap is because of that one error. Remember yesterday we deferred the location to and enabled the location to. And now on the standby, you execute this command to check what is the dataguard status. So this command, we can see MRP is up and running. You can see apply finish time estimated. This command is good for your clients, guys. Just in case all the experienced DBAs, this command is little important for you. Let me show you set lines 999. Okay, let me make this window a little big. Can you see? This command can give you the transport lag and the apply lag. So make sure this value is +00, and this way you can speak to your clients like what is the transport lag between the log files and what is the apply lag in case if your client needs those kind of details. So sometimes this query helps me for my clients. Alright, so make sure there are no gaps on primary and standby. The next step is we need to convert the primary into standby. Okay, so this one command selects switchover status from $$ database. First of all, you check the switchover status. This is a column inside $$ database that will tell like what role this database can take now. Okay, because if it is primary, it cannot take primary role again. If it is primary, the switchover role it can take is standby. So mostly if you run this query, you should see to standby, that means primary is ready to be converted into standby, or sessions active. So sessions active we used to see in 11G version, but nowadays you only see to standby. I think I haven't seen at least sessions active in 12C release 2. So in 11G, if you see sessions active, nothing to worry. So let us run this command. So guys, where am I running? This is more important. Always look at this window. I'm running on the primary. Select switchover status from $$ database, and you can see that this database is ready to be converted to standby. All right. So alter database commit to switchover to physical standby with session shutdown. Don't worry guys, this session shutdown is not for the users. It is for you, like you who is executing the command. Okay, so most of the times DBAs get confused understanding, okay, this command will disconnect all the users who are connected currently to the database. It doesn't happen. So if you see by now the client is happily running. Okay, there is no problem at the client end, right? Client is able to query. I can re-execute the query. You can see it's working. So after this command, alter database commit to switch over to physical standby, we are converting the primary. So this primary is converted to standby. So once you convert this to standby, so test is also, the original primary is in standby mode. The test underscore s was already in standby mode. So now client should be in a confused state, right? And that is what we are going to do. Once we convert the primary to standby, we will run a query on the client terminal just to see what happens. So I am converting the primary database to standby. alter database commit to switch over to physical standby with session shutdown. All right. So this is something like it has shut down my own session. So you don't have to worry, like the clients, they can still work. I'll show you. Now, because we are performing a switchover, the standby must always be in mount mode, right? So we convert to standby and mount the DB. Because now this has become new standby, it should be able to accept the redo log files coming in the reverse direction, correct? So we don't need to shut down immediate because our session is already down. You need to directly go for startup mount. So mount this database. So earlier primary database has now been converted into standby database. So it is in mount mode. All right. So now that it is mounted, the biggest question that we have is there is no primary in our configuration, right? So on the client, this is our client, I am executing the same query. So I'll give slash and enter, and can you see client has gone on waiting. Now it will wait. So what we will do is convert the standby to primary. So on the standby server, check the switchover status. This is my standby, and over here you can see it will show as to primary. So standby is ready to convert to primary. Alter database commit to switch over to primary with session shutdown. So this will again disconnect my session, and can you see database has been altered. Now that this database has become primary, we need to open the database because it was earlier in mount mode, right? Alter database open. And meanwhile I'll open the client terminal. Just see guys, as this database opens, the client will get the result over here. Now see this one. Okay, can you see the database name is same, open mode is read write, but DB unique name is test_s. So in this case what happened is client went on waiting until the standby was converted to primary. And once it was converted to primary, we opened the DB and client was able to get the result of the query. So once this step is done, so this is your new primary, this is your new standby, we need to enable MRP process on this server, right? So that now the logs which are flowing in this direction, MRP should be able to apply those logs on the new standby. And how do you do it? One simple command. So alter database recover managed standby database disconnect. And don't worry, we'll be performing couple of log switches to see if our dataguard setup is working fine or not. All right. So this window which was earlier primary is now standby, and this window which was earlier standby is now primary. So archive log list, it is working on log number 29, and on this server describe v $managed standby. So select process status sequence number from v $managed standby. Can you see MRP is waiting for log number 29. So what I will do is I'll perform couple of log switch just to see if logs are flowing perfectly in the reverse direction or not. So alter system switch log file. I'll do 2-3 log switches, and on this new standby let us run this command. Can you see it is still applying the log number 29? And now quickly, if you see, applying log number 32, applying log number 29, and waiting for log number 34, right? So with this we can conclude that our switchover activity was perfectly fine. And in this switchover activity what we have done is we have completely switched the databases. The clients are happy, client did not face any error, and this earlier standby became primary, and this Earlier primary became standby. So if you want to revert back to original configuration, you once again perform a switchover, right? So you convert this standby into primary, you convert this primary into standby, and clients will continue to work on the database. So for the sake of increasing the complexity, let me perform the switchover for you once again so that you understand how to revert back to the original configuration, right? But you need to be very careful where you are running the commands. Right now this is my standby server, but this database is primary database. This primary server, the database on the primary server is currently acting as the standby database. So you need to be very careful where you are running the commands. If you ever get confused, before running the command, always select database underscore role from the $database. Run this command, check the database role, and execute the query on the proper database only. Alright, you can see this server is primary and this server is acting as physical standby. Alright. So how to perform or get back to original setup? I will once again perform the entire activity so that I will switch back to my original configuration. So we have already checked there are no gaps. So Kenneth, sorry, where is your comment? Can you please later help us do the DG broker configuration? Of course, that's the topic of the course. So now that we have performed the switchover and I want to get back to original, so convert your primary to standby. Okay, so select the switchover status and I need to run it on primary. Okay, don't run it on the primary server, even though this server is primary but the database is acting as physical standby. So on the current primary, check the switchover status. It is ready to be converted to standby, right? So run this command to convert it to physical standby, and you need to mount the database and execute query on the client. Okay, so what we'll do is, because we have the client up and running connected, we will execute the query again, hit enter. Client has gone in wait because there is no primary server right now, and convert the standby to primary on the standby, the physical standby. Run this command and you can see it is ready to be converted to primary. And once you execute this command, it will convert to primary, and you open the database. So as you open the database, you can see client will be able to get the result. Can you see? So client is still connected to test database. It is in open mode. DB unique name is test. So this defines that we are back onto the original configuration. Can you see? We earlier primary was test server. Then once we perform first switchover, test underscore s became the original primary, the new primary, and we reverted back to the test server, right? So once this is done, we have to enable the MRP on the standby. Alter database, recover, manage standby database, disconnect. Okay, amazing guys. So this is like the most critical part in dataguard, because client connectivity is more important. Otherwise it will be a challenge for you as a DBA, because see, if client connectivity is not set properly, what's the point? If you perform a switchover or if there is a failover, you need to edit the TNS entries of all the applications. So I'll give you one example. Let's assume you don't know how to configure the TNS entries, right? So primary server is on 192.168.0.12 and you have a standby server. The standby server is 192.168.0.14. Now, once you perform the switchover, you have hundreds of applications that connect to your dataguard environment, right? So if you don't configure the TNS entries well, on all these servers, you need to edit the TNS names.aura file and point the IP address or change the IP address of your new primary. So whenever you perform a switchover or failover, you need to change the IP addresses on all the application servers. So be careful. In the dataguard configuration, the setup is more important. The TNS entry setup.